Hey, good day, Moran. Elliot Anderson, Marietta, Georgia, getting back with you with round two. Appreciate that. Regarding what I'm doing now to, I guess, cover my bills, I had money saved, fortunately, and also with the CARES Act coming into play, that's also supplementing some of my income stream. So it's given me also an opportunity to devote more time towards reading and developing some of my other skills. Everything I do is really pertaining to the real estate business in some form or fashion. So, of course, with I guess your question of how many hours in a day would I have to devote to this end of the business, I, whatever I'll need. I'm flexible at that particular point because right now my time is mine. So if it takes 40, 50 hours to put into this, great. Most of the time when I'm doing my real estate stuff, I'll start in the morning, and a lot of times I'm not done with my day till 10, 11 o'clock at night. Now, not all of that is just say directly focused in on real estate. Some of it will be focused in on reading and just kind of enhancing my understanding of the business, or just increasing my thought process by exposing myself to new knowledge. And I tell you, pretty much the only day that I generally will take off, and then again, I don't know if it's just totally take off, but Sundays are days in which I'll kind of dial back. But other than that, I'm pretty much at it in some capacity of the business Monday through Saturday. Give you an idea of what my average day looks like. Man, I usually get up around 6 o'clock at the latest. Most of the time, I'm up around 4:30. And get in, get into reading my word, reading the Bible, meditating on what I've read, and then asking for clarity so I can be effective in the course of the day, interacting with people. Um, Then from there, right around 8 o'clock, I'm generally out walking. I'll usually walk anywhere from 3 to 7 miles. I've got actually five different courses that ranges and varies from that 3 to that 7 mile period. So it takes me anywhere from an hour, or I should say maybe about 50 minutes to about an hour and a half if I go the longest distance. And I'm usually walking at 5 to 6 days out the week. Then 3 to 4 days out the week. Once I get back home, I'll lift some light weights. Not trying to become Atlas or nothing like that, but just to keep tone and keep myself sharp. After that, of course, I'll shower and then get ready for my business activity part of the day. I've got a CRM system that I hadn't used in a while, so I've been refreshing my memory on using that because I have about 600 leads for one particular aspect of the real estate business I'm focusing in on now. Um, that I've got to input that information into the CRM, so I can start not only printing out the letters, mailing those, and then of course following up with phone calls to see basically who will be interested in taking the next step of what we're offering with this particular opportunity. All right, so my employment since in the 20s. Oof. Okay, it's been a long journey. So in my early 20s, the latter part of college, I was working and going to school full time, working full time, going to school full time, working for General Motors Corporation in their synthetic and fabrication plant, where I was considered assistant supervisor. The technical name was called checker. My responsibility was to be responsible for 5 to 7 sewing machine operators, making sure that they had the sufficient enough supplies in order to do their hourly assignments, which was basically sewing the seat cushions for the seats of the cars that we provided for GM, and also the door panels. Um, Okay. After that, I had to also make sure that we had always sufficient enough inventory. So when we got low on inventory, I had to order the inventory, and then checking the boxing labels to make sure that everything was packed properly and shipped out or prepared to be shipped out from our department on to the manufacturing. That's what I did with them. After about 2 years there, I entered the real estate business. Actually, it's kind of interesting how that even happened. I was coming from my cousin's house watching a Monday night football game, riding my bicycle, and was shot off my bike by uh, some young men. They were in a car. They tried to run me over, and then, long story short, one of them hopped out, started shooting. One of the bullets hit me on my right arm. I fell off the bike and laid there for a second, thinking that they were coming to finish me off, but they were on the other side of the street. And when I realized I could get up and get away, I got up and got away, ran home, and wound up having to go to the hospital. To have the bullet removed, and eventually had this arm surgically repaired. It's about 50 some odd stitches in the arm. If I didn't have this jacket when I pull it out, I'll show you the big smile on my arm. But during that particular time, I was actually on layoff with General Motors, and was about to run out of my unemployment and compensation. And because this happened, it allowed me to transition from unemployment to medical, and which I stayed on medical because it took about 2 years for this arm to get back right. So during that time period, I was sitting there saying, wow, what can I do? What can I do? And I thought while I was really in the hospital that, you know what, I'm going to get into the real estate business. So I wound up taking the class, and then preparing for the state exam, which was a whole nother interesting scenario on what happened with the state exam, or right before the state exam. The night before, I had stopped at Dairy Queen, and I bought a banana split. Ate the banana split. I've eaten banana splits in the past, but for some reason, later on that evening, I broke out like kind of in hives, my face swollen and all this other stuff. Had to go to the hospital. Found out that I had an allergic reaction to something I'd eaten. So the banana split was really, the last thing that I had eaten. And sorry about that. Banana split was the last thing I'd eaten, so I had an allergic reaction to that. Was telling the doctor wanted to give me these Benadryl pills, and he gave them to me and told me that I was telling him I had a test in the morning. This was about 1 o'clock in the morning when I was at emergency, and he was telling me that once you take these Benadryl, you're not going to be able to be up for this exam at 8 o'clock in the morning. I doubt that very seriously, is what he told me. But I was like, well, to myself, hey, I've already paid the money for it, and if I don't pass, I got to retake it. So I prefer the chance taking it, even if I'm in a compromised mindset because of this Benadryl I was going to have to take. So anyway, I get home, take the Benadryls, lay down next to my component set, so let you know how long ago that was. Had the music turned down really low, and had my clock set to alarm. The clock went off. Of course, I woke up. I was really kind of, hazy because Benadryl makes you sleep. And I was like, well, okay, let me take my time, washed myself up, and got ready to go. Fortunately, at the University of Detroit, where the test was being taken, I lived probably about 4 miles from there, but I could take the back roads, and one of the back roads was just a really smooth transition from my house to the U of D without any traffic. So I knew my reflexes weren't like what they would normally be if I didn't have the stuff in my system. I drove to U of D. It was a 4-hour test. But one thing that one of my math teachers told us when we were taking tests, he always would say, hey, when you come in, you look over the test, read through each answer. each question, excuse me, get an idea what you think the answers are, and then you come back and then take the test. Because at that point, your mind has been exposed to the information, and of course, you have a more comfortable feel for what's being asked versus you trying to answer the question as soon as you read. So anyway, I did that. I was done in about 2.5 hours. And I reviewed my forms, felt real good about it, and turned it in. And that was during the time when they would tell you it wasn't just pass or fail. They tell you what your grades were at that point, and I scored 94. So I was really happy about that. So anyway, I'll move on to that. Start doing the real estate. Go to Century 21. DuPont Realty was who we were called, and sold one deal. My first, I started in like October. And so sold one deal, I think was in November, slowly closed that. So got a chance to see what it's like to make, some real estate money. It was pretty decent. Then the beginning of the year, when it signed up for Floyd Wickman's Action Real Estate. And this is Floyd's course back in their educational concepts, where these are CDs. And I still keep all my real estate stuff, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So it was a 3-month course, and very interactive. It was, probably 250, 300 people there. I learned quite a bit, to say the least. In fact, once I came back, I was in the top 5 of our real estate company for our sales for the 2 years that I was there. And we had about 40, maybe 45 sales reps. So I was, like I said, I was always in the top 5. A couple of times like number 1, but definitely always in the top 5.